Welcome, welcome, everybody. Thanks for tuning in to another episode of Wigs for Wigs. I'm Joe Cook, and we're kicking off season 3 here today on Wigs for Wigs, this history and politics podcast. It's been a lot of changes over the summer. It's taken us a little bit longer to kick off this third season because of some things that have been happening. Many of you who listen know me. You know that I have a little child at home. That takes up a lot of time. But more importantly, Bill, who, is our most frequent co-host here, retired at the end of our last season. He retired from education after decades in education. So we haven't had our free periods during the day to have a chance to chat and record an episode. So we're coming at you from Zoom now. We're going to see how that goes. But in a moment, I'm going to be joined by Bill, and we'll be talking about everything that's been going on over these last few months. It's been a chaotic summer and early fall in the world of politics and in world events. So we're just going to see where the conversation takes us, really. It's been a while since we had a chance to talk. Bill's been traveling. So it's going to be an interesting one. As always, I encourage you to reach out to us. Reach out to us at Wigs for Wigs. That is WIGSFORWHIGS at gmail.com. I would love to hear your thoughts on what we talk about, but also I'd love to hear topics that you would like us to cover, both current event topics and even and also history topics. So if you're so inclined, please reach out to us again. It's Wigs for Wigs, the name of this podcast, at gmail.com. We look forward to hearing from you. In a moment, we're going to take a break for an ad, and I'll be right back with Bill Venezia. Oh, welcome back, everybody. We're here for season 3 of Wigs for Wigs, and I'm joined once again by Bill Venezia. Bill, how you doing?
Good, very good, Joe. Very good.
How's retirement treating you?
Well, I've actually done a little bit of pro bono work at Hudson Catholic, and I just got back from a 15-day trip to Germany and Austria. I went to visit, Joe, the birthplace of the current GOP, the Eagles Nest.
I was going to say Nuremberg, but
no, I didn't go to Nuremberg. I did the opposite. My wife had never seen Dachau, so we spent better part of a day, she and I, there, which very sobering experience.
Sure.
That's the second time
I've never been to Europe, but I mean, having been to just battlefields, plenty of them in America, you feel that power of place when you go to places like that.
Germany, the relationship between Germany and the United States is a remarkable one. It's due to the diplomacy of both Roosevelt and Truman with regard to the Marshall Plan. I mean, when you basically totally vanquish an enemy, what happened after World War I, especially, as you know, the Allies basically really set the seeds for the Second World War with the way they treated Germany. And I think that the diplomacy and the far thinking, on the part of America and its allies, with the exception of the Soviet Union, decided to build up Germany, to rebuild Germany, and that there's a strong bond there, I have to say. I mean, it's had its ebbs and flows during the Reagan administration with the proliferation of missiles, which was very unpopular in Germany. I remember that in the 80s. But for the most part, the relationship between the two countries is very solid. And it's
well, then you look at the end of the Cold War when President H.W. Bush very methodically worked to both promote the unification of Germany, which a lot of Europe, including our allies, did not want.
Right.
They remembered what a unified Germany meant for Europe, but President Bush and Secretary Baker really wanted that. They wanted to unify Germany, and they wanted to unify Germany within NATO. And I mean, today Germany's one of the really critical players within NATO.
Yep, absolutely. And what's interesting about Germany? I mean, they were, hey, listen, they were firebombed. They were really decimated during the war. There are monuments and stuff to to what took place during the Second World War to Germany, but they also incorporate, and I've noticed this in places like Dresden and Cologne. They've basically memorialized what the Nazis did to other countries in terms of bombing. You know, they see it both ways. They understand it. There seems to be, you know, Germany came to an understanding of what it caused and what was done to them.
Yeah, they've reckoned with their history in a way
They
that
have.
some other countries have not so much.
No, that's for sure. I'm impressed with that. And I have to say, just on a personal level, I'm not a real big beer drinker, but I visited many breweries and monasteries while I was in Germany, and the beer is really good. Actually, their white wine's not bad either. In Austria, their reds aren't bad. So it was a good eating and drinking, but I'm glad to be back in the
Any
US.
good German drinking songs you picked up along the way?
Excuse me?
Any good German drinking songs you picked up along the way?
No, I not really. Although, man, they do like to get together in those beer halls. We caught the tail end of Oktoberfest, and it's kind of funny too, because a lot of the monks who make the beers are like the cloistered type, so you don't even see them, but they turn out some pretty damn good beer.
So we haven't recorded in a few months now, since I don't know if it was June or May that we put out our last episode, but been pretty quiet these last few months.
Well, it hasn't really been quiet at all. I mean, it's amazing just the events of the past few days with Joe Manchin. You know, we had spoken about a third party candidate. Now we have four third party candidates, running for president, which will dilute the vote.
RFK Jr. Jill Stein just said she's seeking the Green Party nomination again.
What's his name? The college professor. I can't think of his name. Who's running, and Cornell West is running, and now Biden. Joe Manchin hasn't said if he's in or he's out, but looks like he's in, since he's not going to run for re-election.
Well, I mean, for one, there's different layers of this. Disaster for the Democrats in terms of future control of the Senate.
Yes, with
there's no other Democrat who's winning West Virginia, state that Donald Trump won by like 45 points.
Yeah. But they're in play in some other areas, so that
they are. But it really annoys me when I hear Democratic friends be like, "Well, Joe Manchin's not a real Democrat anyway." Okay, but you'd rather have some
a Republican?
Insanely right-wing MAGA Republican than Joe Manchin.
Well, that's what you're going to get when Donald Trump basically won the state by 39 points.
Yeah. So
I mean,
I was sick of these political purity tests that some people have for.
Well, that goes on the right too.
Well, of course it does.
Yeah, I mean, obviously.
I can't say how many times I was called a rhino growing.
I think you should wear that
as a John McCain Republican. I was always a rhino or a squishy.
You should wear that. You should wear that as a badge of honor.
Oh, I do.
Given the fact that the Republicans can't get out of their way in the Congress.
Well, we missed that while we were away for the summer. The longest stretch in American history without a Speaker of the House.
And what did we get? I mean,
we got a guy that nobody's ever heard of, because pretty much everybody got exhausted.
Well, Donald Trump's heard of him because he was a stalwart to basically overturn the election.
Yeah. And
some of his views are so extreme with regard to the gay issue, or with regard to his wife has got some crazy ideas.
Oh, I've seen, but he says that to know his opinion on any issue, you just have to read the Bible.
That's it. Yeah,
which I guess means he's okay with slavery and other things that have been sanctioned by the Old Testament of the Bible.
Well, he's in step with DeSantis. Slavery had a lot of positive things.
Yeah, there were positive sides to slavery.
Yeah, positive sides to enslavement. But
they learned skills.
The sad part is that you can see the effect, except for these elections that you just can't figure. The the election seemed to go the Democrats' way, last Tuesday. And it's an interesting thing. I mean, even with a president whose approval ratings are like around 40%, if that,
I don't think they're that high. Yeah.
they're not. But I guess it's too soon. Even though when you look at the polling in those basically swing states, to see where Trump is polling. I mean, I guess he was right not to basically get involved with the debates. And those people are making no noise whatsoever, just squeaks.
No.
It's kind of sad. I mean, I was surprised at Tim Scott coming out as vociferously against policies of Donald Trump without calling them out, as he did on Tuesday night. To me, that was one takeaway. It's interesting too to see the two Indian Americans basically go at each other, vociferously. Ramaswamy.
I mean, this Ramaswamy guy is really, I mean, what a sleaze.
He is the ultimate sleaze. I mean,
I think Saturday Night Live last night hit it on the head. They had Donald Trump talking, the actor playing Donald Trump talking about all the five that were in the debate. And he said, Vivek Ramaswamy, we love him. He says all the things that I say, but there's one thing that he doesn't have that's very important to my base. Basically, white skin. Well, he talks like Trump. He's a jerk like Trump.
He's a younger version. Who knows what he really believes? The truth of the matter is, I mean, he's obviously, campaigning for second place. He's campaigning to be on that ticket with Trump. But I would think that Trump is going to pick, maybe even Tim Scott. Can Tim Scott be on that ticket with him?
I don't think he's going to pick Tim Scott. I think Carrie Lake is more likely than Tim Scott.
That to me,
she's back. She's trying to run again.
Is she as governor of Arizona?
As for a cinema seat in the Senate.
Okay. All right. Well, then if she's running for cinema seat, she's not going to get involved with Trump as vice president. That's for sure. I don't think she'd want to. It doesn't make any sense. Unless they really feel.
But then there's that governor of South Dakota, Kristi Noem. She's all Trumpy.
She's very Trumpy, but unfortunately, she's got her own scandals to, with who was the former chief of staff for Trump who left the campaign. He was his bodyguard too. Corey Lewandowski. They've carried on a very public affair. Which I don't know.
Do you think that matters to Trump voters?
I think it might. I think she's kind of poisoning the water for herself. I can't see them going with Carrie Lake. And Carrie Lake, I can't see her wanting to be on that ticket. Kristen Sinema's seat is probably more in play. But it's going to be interesting to see. Or I guess the test of where we're at. And can the Republicans hurt themselves even more in their failure to govern if we can't get past this, if we can't basically end the debt limits situation and fund the government, and we're now approaching 4 days. 4 days and change. And I don't know how close, we are.
I don't think we're particularly close.
No, I don't think both sides are even talking to each other.
No, I haven't heard at all about the new speaker talking with Joe Biden or anything to try to, or even with Hakeem Jeffries. I mean,
he did.
He just laid out his own plan, but I don't see that going anywhere.
Yeah, I mean, they're talking about a clean transition with only aid to Israel. Of course they are not going to basically. Doesn't seem like they're going to budge on any aid to the. To Ukraine, but also there's no, something that is near and dear to Republicans' heart, the border. I think that's an area that they could, collaborate and at least compromise on, fund the border, fund Israel. And why wouldn't you fund Israel? Although I think Israel's put itself in a very,
Well,
very
why wouldn't you fund Ukraine? I mean,
well, because they want, because if he's listening solely to Donald Trump will have us out of funding
yeah.
Ukraine and siding with Ukraine. And supposedly he'd step in and make some sort of an agreement with Putin.
Although he doesn't seem to like Bibi Netanyahu either. So
No, but he doesn't like anybody but himself.
well, yeah.
You know, I mean, plain and simple. I think the person that's Kami has come out looking the best at the optics of it anyway, with regard to this disaster in the Middle East is Tony Blinken. I mean, I think he's an excellent representative for the United States and is a great diplomat. And I think he's worked tirelessly. You know, I also think that Biden going, you know, there was important to show solidarity with Israel. I see this whole thing, when this is over, you know, and hopefully it is over, as the end of Bibi, because this is on his watch. And I think when they do an autopsy in Israel, which they will do, they're going to see this as a failure of the compact that the Israeli leaders have with the people of Israel to keep them safe.
Yeah.
Their intelligence was asleep at the wheel with this, you know, obviously, you know, and the fact that, you know, he didn't have to do some of the massive bombings that he did.
Well, so this is, yeah, it's getting out of hand, some of this. Even as somebody who definitely wants Israel to win this war, whatever it is, whatever that end result is, the bombing of the refugee camps and things has just been.
No, it's genocide. You know, you know, I know that there's been, it's turned public opinion in the United States,
Yeah.
Against Israel to a certain degree. And God knows that the forces of anti-Semitism were alive and well in the United States.
Well, that's for sure.
Prior to this, and this just basically poured gasoline on the fire, you know, and it's a sad state of affairs. You know, of course, you want to see Hamas crushed, but the more you bomb, no one learns from history, Joe. That's the problem. Look at what LBJ and Nixon did in Vietnam. The more they bombed, the more the resolve of the North Vietnam was. Yeah. And it was just an untenable situation, you know. And I think, truthfully, the people who are suffering the most in Palestine, those children, they're going to be the terrorists of the future. They don't realize that, you know, and it's sad. There's only one thing that should happen when this is over: a two-state solution. And the United States has to be involved in that, and so does the Middle East. So does Saudi Arabia. And so
Saudi Arabia, yeah.
You know, and so does Egypt, and so does Jordan. You know, it would benefit them too. And you could see how afraid of terrorists Jordan and Egypt were, you know, in terms of not letting the refugees in, because they couldn't tell who was a refugee and who was a terrorist.
It's such a strange situation with Hamas also, because they are essentially at this point an Iran proxy, and yet Iran is a Shiite country trying for Shiite domination of the Middle East. Hamas is a Sunni organization that you would think would be more on the side of Saudi Arabia in the power struggle of the Middle East, and yet they've taken the side essentially of Iran as their sponsors.
Yeah, I mean, along with the Houthis in Yemen, which, you know, up until this point in the Middle East, things were not calm in the Middle East. People forget that there was a proxy war between Iran and Saudi Arabia going on in Yemen, where you know, the Saudis, the good-spirited people that they are, was starving Yemeni children and bombing the crap out of them, you know, with weaponry to, you know, sent to them.
They still managed to come up with a few $1 billion to give to Jared Kushner and Ivanka Trump.
Well, that money is, of course, and to Donald Trump with regard to Live Golf. He's not making money out of it. I mean, you know, they're not our friends. They never were.
But hey, Joe Biden might have made a couple $100,000 from Ukraine when he wasn't even in office. So, you know, biggest scandal in American history.
You know, I mean, if you want to talk about his son, it's chump change as opposed to the $2 billion refinance that that Jared Kushner, who's like in the woodwork right now, to refinance his real estate empire in New York, which the banks were going to foreclose on him if he didn't come up with the dough.
Well, there might not be a Trump organization anymore soon.
Well, why don't we focus on that a little bit, in terms of, it doesn't look good for him in New York.
Well, actually, before we do that, because I think we're going to spend some time on that, let me kind of wrap up this kind of all over the place conversation that we're having right now, because we mentioned Joe Manchin is retiring from the Senate, but there was another big Senate retirement announced a few weeks ago. Just want to play something and then let you respond.
Sure.
Senate has made him very alarmed.
I mean, there's some echoes to Mark Salter's last book about his old boss, John McCain, who in some ways does the in that case, a deathbed confession of what he saw and what has collapsed. But what's so amazing about Romney, let me show you what he said, and then let me ask you about this. This is on Sunday shows.
No question, I don't really have a home in my party. I come from a tradition of, Ronald Reagan and George Herbert Walker Bush and George W. Bush and John McCain. Those are the people that have shaped our party. Anti-Putin, anti-Russia, anti-authoritarians, anti-Kim Jong-un. Character counts. The character of our leaders makes a difference, and it shapes the character of our country. That's the party I've come from. And I don't recognize that in the great majority of our party today. And that, for me, is very troubling.
What you're reporting, I think, layers onto that, is Romney's almost feeling like, I felt this way, disoriented. It's not just that it stopped standing up against Putin. It's that it likes him.
Yeah.
What does Romney think explains?
Okay, I'm going to stop that. I'm going to stop that there. Hopefully you were able to hear that. Were you able to hear that?
Yeah, I did. It was a good job, Joe.
So that was Nicole Wallace, with the author of the new biography of Mitt Romney. And Romney just announced a few weeks ago that he is leaving the Senate. He's not seeking re-election. What's it say about the fact that the only other living nominee of the Republican Party, oh no, other than George W. Bush, but the last nominee of the Republican Party before Donald Trump says he no longer has a home in the Republican Party?
Well, it says a lot. I mean, I take what Romney said with a grain of salt, because he did try to ingratiate himself with Donald Trump because
he really wanted to be Secretary of State.
Wanted to be Secretary of State, and Trump taunted him. I mean, it was repulsive the way he treated him. But Romney put himself in that situation. Would he have made a good Secretary of State? Absolutely. I respect his service to this country. I think he's a decent man, but there were times when he needed to step up and he did at times. I mean, he voted to impeach Donald Trump.
Both times.
Both times. And I
the first one, he became the first person ever to vote to impeach a member of his own party.
Yeah. I mean, I think that I have mixed feelings about him. I thought,
I do too in the long run of things.
Yeah, but I think he is a man of some character. He talked about character and the character of those other people that he mentioned before, and I do agree with that. I do agree that he manifested that. He had also remember too, Romney's 77 years old. He looks good for 77. Yeah. I don't know if I'm going to look that good. But it's only a few years from now, but well,
isn't that like a young age for a president these days?
Yeah, you're right. Right. The current Republican is 77, and God knows Joe Biden's 80. So it's going to be interesting to see.
I mean, what he spelled out essentially. I mean, that's what I grew up the Republican Party standing for. Was anti-authoritarianism, anti-Putin, anti, again, pro character matters for your leaders and all. And obviously, we don't have, there are issues with Dick Cheney and others in the time that I was growing up. But I mean, at least that's what the party stood for and promoted around the world. And now, like Mitt Romney, I don't recognize the Republican Party.
You don't. And
he didn't even talk about free trade. I mean, some other issues that the Republicans traditionally believed in that have been thrown in the toilet by the Donald Trump MAGA wing of the party.
Yeah, well, it's sadly become a cult of personality, and the person that everybody follows, the leader, has so many issues, that he was right. Donald Trump said that I could shoot somebody in Times Square and still get elected.
It's the most honest thing he ever said.
Yeah, the only honest,
most honest, accurate thing he ever said.
Yep.
So let's talk more about Donald Trump. We're going to take a little break. We'll go throw it to an ad for a moment, and we'll be right back here on Wigs for Wigs to talk about what's going on with the former president. Stick around. All right, we're back here on Wigs for Wigs, and we're here to talk a little bit about what's going on with Donald Trump.
Well, it doesn't look good for him in the civil case in New York City, and I believe that his organization is going to get decimated. When they're finished. Now, I'm not that sure, because it's a civil case, what the possibilities of appeals are. But when the verdict comes down, it's got to impact him to a certain degree. I'm not sure that
it's a bold legal strategy to, when everything is up to the judge, spend your time taunting the judge and insulting the judge.
Oh, yeah, well, that's what he does with everything. I mean,
but it's his own lawyers who didn't check a box to get a jury trial, and then he's going around saying they denied me a jury trial. It's all rigged against me.
When in doubt, lie.
And his supporters eat it up.
It's ironic. I read something in the Daily News today. I forgot the columnist's name, but it talks about how unfair the legal system. Donald Trump keeps complaining about how it's all rigged, it's unfair. Do you recall the Central Park Five, when they weren't?
Who he took out a full-page ad to execute them?
Execute them, yeah. And now, ironically, the chickens have come home to roost in New York, where one of the five was just elected a councilman in New York City. And it's kind of funny. It's not funny. It's pathetic and sad.
Yeah.
That his supporters basically just continue to follow him. It scares the living heck out of me with regard to, I'm hoping that some of the criminal cases, which it seems like he's going to trial in March for the documents case.
The federal case is in all likelihood going to trial in March.
Yeah, and which is a good thing, because I think that's the documents case.
No, it's the January 6th case.
January 6th case. Okay.
The documents case is the one that Eileen Cannon is overseeing. That's supposed to start in May, I think, but it's almost certainly going to be pushed back.
No, Joe, let's do a fact check on that, because I believe that I think the documents case is May, and I think the January 6th is March. That's what you said, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, that's so. But she's
almost certainly. I think the documents case is going to be pushed back. There's the issue of classified, documents that people have to get clearances and things, and it's right on the tail of the other case that might still be at trial. I think it's very likely that one will be pushed back.
I know one of his lawyers, Kais, had just basically petitioned the court to put that off until late November.
And the judge made a little bit of a wishy-washy ruling, but basically said, let's revisit that question later on.
But she categorically denied to push it off at that time. So what is on the docket, between now and the election? What is going to get heard? The case in Manhattan?
Manhattan case is supposed to start in either January or February.
Okay. And then
I don't know if it will.
Georgia case.
I could see Jack Smith and the judge Chutkin requesting that case be pushed off to not run into the March January 6th case.
Okay. But it's going to be, I think
the most damaging would be the January 6th case.
Do you? I think the slam dunk is the documents case. I don't think that.
I think legally that's a slam dunk, but I don't think that his support, or I don't think anybody will be moved by that in terms of who they're voting for.
No, okay.
Because they'll say Joe Biden had classified documents too, even though it's a false equivalency, but I think people will say that.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. I see your point with that. I agree with that. I think that he'll dodge the rest of the Republican debates. But how could he dodge? I don't think he will be able to dodge a debate with Biden. You know, I think he'd look
No,
forward.
he's going to have to debate.
Yeah.
So we are just about out of time here, Bill. Your final thoughts.
Well,
I'm glad we have a season 3. We'll talk more again about a lot of this, but your final thoughts.
Well, I think one, everything is to be continued. It seems that we're in the soap opera phase of politics in the United States, and almost like a reality TV show. And it changes by the day. So stay tuned.
Stay tuned. And stay tuned with us here on Wigs for Wigs. See you again soon, everybody. Take care.